I thought it was brilliant, and about time, you know, that he stepped up, said what he said, because he's, at the end of the day, amongst us, he is our face. I mean, he's a African American, a very powerful African American. So for him to step up in the midst of these times right now, it was very big on his behalf, and not also just step up. You know, it's not always about money and giving back, but for him to step up and put his money where his mouth at, I mean, the timing was perfect.
Well, I guess some people might say, you know, things are bad if Michael Jordan, who is usually silent on a lot of controversial issues, or especially issues involving race, for him to speak out, donate some money, then that lets you know the seriousness in which this issue has reached. He's got a lot of criticism, even in doing this, Mike, that I'm sure you've heard over the last, since this was released, like too little too late, or why now, or you know, what does this really mean given the nature of his statement? And I guess I fall into the category, I wouldn't put this as in a something is better than nothing, because look, if I've said this before about athletes and social issues, everybody is not equipped, everybody does not have the desire to be a leader when it comes to social commentary and involving themselves in social issues. I'm okay if you want to sit this one out, sit these plays out, because you know your own limitations. So it's hard for me to completely criticize him for the manner in which he did this, and to say, well, where were you on this, that, and the other? Because I certainly, I mean, in some respects, we get some level of this all the time with this show. Well, why did y'all talk about this? Why did y'all talk about that? Why did you address that? It's like, okay, at some point, we have to actually appreciate what was done and not constantly nitpick it to death. Even though I understand the concerns, and some of them are valid. I think his track record with these issues is a part of the conversation, but the fact that he has shown a willingness to engage, I think, is, how can you not see it as anything but a positive step?
Well, so with Jordan, it's so complicated, because there's the infamous quote that supposedly he didn't say, but yet was attributed to him: the Republicans buy shoes. And then there has been the public silence on issues like, you know, sweatshop manufacturing for Jordans, the killings of Jordans, different things that he has not spoken up about. And obviously you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar recently saying that Jordan, compared to some other athlete activists, chose commerce over conscience. And make sure I get that quote right. So that's where the, you know, well, too little, too late, or better late than never. I saw one headline in Chicago read, or, you know, some people have said, well, why'd you donate your money to the Institute for Community Police Relations, $1 million, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, $1 million, as opposed to some other organizations? Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that, because it's like, if he doesn't say anything, he's a sellout, and he's, you know, not down for the cause. He's just about making money. If he does say something, then you got people who are on the sidelines, not in the game, telling him what shots he should have taken. You know, and that to me is where you're out of bounds. Like, if you could look in the mirror and say you have done everything right, and you've written a book on how to advocate for social change, and I guess you can do this, but I'm never one to tell somebody else what they should do with their money or what they should do with their platform. I do believe that unto whom much is given, much is required. And nobody, to Carmelo's point, has more cachet in sports, even in retirement, than Michael Jordan. You got people who've never seen him play, camped out for his retro sneakers. So that's how much sway Michael Jordan still has in popular culture. But here's the thing, man. Implicitly and unintentionally, when we shift the focus to Michael Jordan and examining his body of work when it comes to social issues, we are doing, whether we realize it or not, we're committing the same injustice to and unfair expectations on African-American athletes and all African-Americans in general that you and I discuss all the time. We're putting the onus back on black people to solve racism. All of Michael Jordan's money can't come close to solving the problem of profiling or bias with policing, which, by the way, policing is just a symptom of the disease that is institutional racism. It's just one aspect of the criminal justice system, which is just one part of our overall society, which is infected with racism and has been for years. So Michael Jordan, I'm not saying Michael Jordan shouldn't do anything to help in the community or help uplift other people, but Michael Jordan, there's very little Michael Jordan can do to solve this problem, no matter how much money he throws at it or how many statements he puts out. I say all that to say this. When are we going to go back to the real issue, which is like, look, man, black people have been standing up for a long time. Where are the white athletes with the money? Where are the white athletes with the cachet? Where are the white athletes with the voices? Because as Sue Bird and other WNBA players tweeted, the Martin Luther King quote, "Silence is betrayal." So when are we going to hold them as accountable as we do Michael Jordan because he's black? I get that we have a different kind of responsibility as black people. But again, Jamel, that also perpetuates the notion, I'm sorry to be rambling, but I'm getting there, that also perpetuates the notion that we have to somehow be better. That we have to, be more presentable. We have to achieve more. We have to be better behaved in order to not be murdered by agents of the state. So again, we're talking about what athletes need to do to help black people be better is, again, taking the responsibility away from the police. I'm not saying the police and the government and this country is completely responsible for everything that's transpiring. But they bear a lot of responsibility and accountability too. And when you start looking at Michael Jordan, I'm not saying you're doing this, when the conversation becomes Michael Jordan and what he did and why he did it and when he did it, it's still not about the other people who have to meet us halfway on this issue.
Yeah, and I'm glad you took it to that point, because here's what I don't like about this conversation, not ours, but just in general between policing and these incidents that have happened, and for that matter, Black Lives Matter, because that's where this all associated from. There seems to be, and I don't necessarily want to accuse Jordan of this, because I think where his money went, it was definitely intentional, because
right.
he's trying
Institute for Community Police Relations,
which is
Legal Defense Fund.
Right.
Very specific. Not just police in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, I can't help but notice that there is a certain level of intent to not associate this with Black Lives Matter. That because the organization itself has become
politically toxic.
And so polarizing, and it shouldn't be. And then I feel like we're curbing to almost the lowest common denominator in the room by saying, oh, just because I say I support Black Lives Matter, people will interpret it to mean that I don't support the police. And I'm tired.
Because those people are associating Black Lives Matter with the police shootings.
Correct.
Yeah.
And which is a falsehood. And
right.
I'm tired of every person of note, every black person of note, every time they want to say something to address the problem, they have to preface every statement. The president did this himself 1,000 times when I was at the town hall. He kept saying, I want to make it clear, right. I support the police. You can support the police and love the police and want to hold them accountable. That's because you know they're capable of better. That is not an anti-police statement. And when you talk about meeting people halfway, I feel like it's the police that needs to do more of the outreach.
Well, and that's why I like the donations. Right. And especially the Institute for Community Police Relations. Like $1 million, look, and again, it's more than I've given. Michael Jordan, he lost that on the tables last night. Like that's not money to Michael Jordan. I think it's more of an endorsement than an endowment for a police organization that's actually doing something constructive to help bridge the gap. So I think there's a practicality involved when it comes. I think there was a strategy here more than Michael Jordan is being given credit for. Like, oh, I'm just gonna give money to both sides and put out a neutral statement so that way I'm not really getting my hands dirty. Like, he gave it to specific organizations that could do some good. So endorsing the Institute for Community Police Relations is an implicit way of saying that's the type of organization that the other side, since people have made this debate in a battle between blue and black, or since that's what it's become, unfortunately, when it comes to the rhetoric as opposed to right and wrong, this is the organization that's doing some of the good that needs to be done on that side. That's why Carmelo's meeting was so important. Police showed up, listened, discussed. It wasn't just teenagers and athletes talking about how to avoid getting shot. It was police there listening. So that's part of this process. So I think Jordan's, look, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. He can't please everybody with what he does, but the fact that he did something should not be nitpicked. It should be looked at as you said off the top. It's real out here. Michael Jordan is stepping up. Others are going to step up. This is not going anywhere. These meetings aren't just one-offs. This isn't just some flash-in-the-pan social movement that's going to, dissipate once football season starts. Guys are stepping up, and Michael Jordan is a part of this. That's the end of it. There's no need to Monday morning quarterback it, as far as I'm concerned.
I hope he just stays engaged.
Yes.
That's the main part.
Absolutely.
Stay engaged.
All of us have to.
Yeah.
And not just people with money, people without money.
And not just black people, as you pointed out. There we go.